travel, Maharaj, where we get you from the Bhaktivedanta manner. So without much ado, first of all, thank you again, Maharaj. It's an honor and privilege to have you. It's really, really a wonderful association that we look forward to every week, and the journey that you take us through in the Bhagavad Gita. So on behalf of the School of Vedic Studies, we are blessed to have your association. So thank you again. And also thank you to all the participants, all the respected Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who've joined us, and hopefully many more would join us. In the meanwhile, we will begin. So today, Maharaj is going to give us an overview on the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, the divisions of faith. Over to you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
I need to have a share screen.
Yes, I'm going to do that, Maharaj. Give me, here you are. So you're now the co-host, and that would mean that you can share, Maharaj. Okay.
So are we ready? Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, we're absolutely ready. We can see.
So as we are discussing Bhagavad Gita chapter 17, the division of faith, as usual, the introduction to the chapter by Prabhupada is very clear, saying there are three types of faith corresponding to and evolving from the three modes of material nature. Acts performed by those whose faith is in passion and ignorance yield only impermanent material results, whereas acts performed in goodness, in accord with the scriptural injunction, purify the heart and lead to pure faith in Lord Krishna and devotion to him. So the three divisions, as mentioned in the beginning by Prabhupada himself, saying that they are in three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So we will go through this and how everything follows in the chapter 17. So I have divided this into 6 categories. First and foremost is like the worship in 3 modes. Similarly, the sacrifice, austerities, work, food, charity, all these categories fall into the 3 modes of material nature. Either it is a mode of goodness, or mode of passion, or mode of ignorance. And according to whichever mode is influencing you, that will give the results. So if your worship is in mode of goodness, it will give you a different result. If it's in mode of passion, it will give a different result. If it's in mode of ignorance, it will give a different result. Similarly with all the other categories. So we will now go into the first verse where Arjuna is actually inquiring. Arjuna inquired, "O Krishna, what is the situation of those who do not follow the principles of scripture but worship according to their own imagination? Are they in goodness, in passion, or ignorance?" Of course, we find in our own material experience also that some people, they have good fortune that they have met a bona fide representative of the Supreme Lord who is giving them the principle of Dharma according to the scriptural injunction. Others, they speculate their own imagination and they think that maybe this way or that way it is correct to worship, although they have some inclination towards the worship of the Supreme without knowing who he is. So Arjuna wants a clarification from Krishna, and what mode are there? So in the purport Prabhupada is saying, in the 4th chapter, 39th verse, it is said that person faithful to a particular type of worship gradually becomes elevated to the stage of knowledge and attains the highest perfection stage of peace and prosperity. In the 16th chapter, it is concluded that one who does not follow the principles laid down in the scriptures is called an asura or a demon. And one who follows the scriptural injunction faithfully is called a deva or a demigod. Now, if one with faith follows some rules which are not mentioned in the scriptural injunction, what is his position? So even Prabhupada is questioning now, what is his position? So Arjuna's doubts being cleared by Krishna. So then Prabhupada is further saying in the purport, this doubt of Arjuna is to be cleared by Krishna. Excuse me, those who create some sort of God by selecting a human being and placing their faith in him, worshipping in goodness, passion, ignorance, does such a person attain professional stage of life? It is possible for them to be situated in real knowledge and elevate themselves to the highest perfectional stage. Those who do not follow the rules and regulations of the scripture, but who have faith in something and worship gods and demigods and men attain success in their effort. Arjuna is putting these questions to Krishna. So now the Supreme Personality is answering the query of Arjuna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of three kinds: in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance. Now hear about this. So Prabhupada is giving an elaboration of this. Those who know the rules and regulations of the scripture, but out of laziness or indolence, give up following these rules and regulations, are governed by the modes of material nature. According to their previous activities in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, they acquire a nature which is a specific quality. The association of the living entity with different mode of nature has been going on perpetually. Since the living entity is in contact with material nature, he acquires different types of mentality according to his association with the three modes. So of course, in the previous chapters, we also understood that one acquires a body according to the influences of the three modes of material nature to fulfill particular desires. So there are, of course, mentioned 8,400,000 species of life, and one may get any one of these species of life to fulfill particular desires in the particular mode. So, but this nature can be changed if one associates with a bona fide spiritual master and abides by his rules and the scripture. Gradually, one can change his position from ignorance to goodness or from passion to goodness. The conclusion is that blind faith in a particular mode of nature cannot help a person become elevated to the perfectional stage. One has to consider things carefully with intelligence. In the association of bona fide spiritual master, thus, one can change his position to a higher mode of nature. So here very clearly Prabhupada is saying that nobody is perpetually caught up in a particular mode or particular mode of worship or understanding. But if he has the right kind of blessings of the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee, then by his association, by rules of the scriptures, one can gradually be free from this and change his mode to a higher nature. So in text 3, Krishna is saying, "O son of Bharat, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired." So of course, according to whatever modes we have acquired through association with the material nature and what influences us, we begin to develop a particular kind of faith, and that faith depends on the influence of mode of goodness, mode of passion, or mode of ignorance. So in the purport, Prabhupada is saying everyone has a particular type of faith, regardless of what he is. But his faith is considered good, passionate, or ignorant according to the nature he has acquired. Thus, according to his particular type of faith, one associates with a certain person, certain persons. Now, the real fact is that every living being, as it is situated as is stated in the 15th chapter, is originally a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, one is originally transcendental to all the modes of material nature. But when one forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and comes into contact with material nature in conditional life, he generates his own position by association with different varieties of material nature. Now, it is very categorically said by Prabhupada here that the living entity as mentioned in the previous chapter which we studied, that we are Mamayavansa Jiva, Jiva Loka, Jiva Bhuta, Jiva Sanatan, that we are eternally fragmental parts of Krishna, and therefore in our original status, we are pure and transcendental. But unfortunately, when we come into contact with material nature, then we develop a particular kind of material nature in conditional life. Then as Prabhupada says, he generates his own position by association with different varieties of material nature. So then by very association of material nature, we acquire all these different positions, different understandings. But even after that, if one is fortunate, he can change his position simply by proper association. If one is situated in Krishna consciousness, then that path is guaranteed for his elevation to the perfectional stage. If one does not take to this path of self-realization, then he is surely to be conducted by the influence of the modes of nature. So Prabhupada is emphasizing this point very, very clear, that we can change our situation if we take to the process of Krishna consciousness. And of course, Prabhupada is using this word very carefully. He says it's guaranteed for his elevation to the perfectional stage. But if however, we do not take to this path, then we'll be influenced by the modes of nature, and then we act according to the material nature's influences, and that could lead us to hellish condition, or as mentioned Bhagavad Gita, that we would be suffering in this material world. So this slide is showing very nicely a spiritual personality. He's guiding the seeker of truth, saying that if you follow this path of self-control, sense control, and understand the higher understanding, then that perfection will be reached, and that is the shelter of the Supreme Lord. So one who follows this path according to the directions of a spiritual master who is bona fide and properly situated, then he can make his advancement to the perfectional stage. Now, work is also divided into three modes of nature. So if we are not following, as mentioned here, if one is situated in Krishna consciousness, then that path is guaranteed for his elevation for perfectional stage. Otherwise, he will be bound by his work, and his work is in three modes. So this slide depicts three different categories. Those who are in ignorance, they kind of take to the work which is involved in, lower class of lower modes. Especially this slide is showing a butcher where he is dealing with dead animals. Then there is someone who is in mode of goodness, who is running a grocery store where providing fresh vegetables, fruits, and so forth. And then one who is in mode of passion is running kind of a restaurant where they're feeding all kinds of uneatables and creating mode of passion generated by the food we eat. So it is said that the contaminated modes of material nature expands to the heart. This is a very important line. The contaminated modes of material nature expands to the heart. Therefore, according to the position of the heart in contact with a particular mode of material nature, one's faith is established. It should be understood that if one's heart is in mode of goodness, his faith is also in mode of goodness. If his heart is in mode of passion, his faith is also in the mode of passion. And if his heart is in mode of darkness, illusion, his faith is also thus contaminated. Thus we find different types of faith in this material world. And there are different types of religions due to different types of faith. The real principle of religious faith is situated in the mode of pure goodness. But because the heart is tainted we find different types of religious principles. Thus, according to different types of faith, there are different kinds of worship. So as I mentioned before, the work, according to what type of work you do, that modes will influence you, and your activity will continue in those modes, and they will further entangle you. But the more you understand the exception of the Supreme Lord is in our position, that we are recognize that there is someone who is a higher being than ourselves, then again here in the purport Prabhupada saying, it is connected with the heart. What is your heart's position, whether it's in mode of goodness, mode of ignorance, or mode of passion? And according to that, different kinds of religions will be practiced. So we know in the world that there are different kinds of worship. These are different symbols of different kinds of religions which have been practiced in the material world. And in the fourth text, Krishna is clearly saying, men in mode of goodness worship demigods, those in mode of passion worship the demons, those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. So in this slide is showing some devotees who are worshipping demigods like Brahma, Shiva, Indra. In mode of passion, they worship some very powerful person. In one purport, Prabhupada says, in Kali Yuga, people begin to worship demoniac people like Mussolini, Hitler, Saddam Hussein, and so many others who are considered so-called powerful men. And people bow down to them in mode of passion. And of course, then there is a third category who are completely in mode of ignorance and have no understanding, who worship the forefathers, ghosts and spirits, and thinking that there's some kind of power within that. And their level of understanding of the supremacy is to the point of mode of ignorance, where they cannot see beyond the higher nature, the transcendental nature. So of course, this slide is showing many, many demigods. The one worships demigods in mode of goodness. Here in this slide, I've shown Ravana with his 10 heads. Although Ravana very powerful, many people were bowing down to him, worshiping him as the greatest person and the most powerful. And then, of course, we have this slide depicting worshiping the forefathers, the ghostly beings. Of course, this is the lowest mode in ignorance. And the purport Prabhupada says, in this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead describes different kinds of worship according to their external activities. According to the scriptural injunctions, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable. And underline again, according to the scriptural injunctions, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable. But those who are not very conversant with or faithful to the scriptural injunctions worship different objects. According to their specific situation in the modes of material nature, those who are situated in goodness generally worship the demigods. The demigods include Brahma, Shiva, and others such as Indra, Chandra, and the sun god. According to scriptural injunction, Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable. So this is an underlying fact that according to the scriptural injunction, which was also mentioned in the beginning of the chapter, that one should follow their faith according to the scriptural direction. And scriptural means not some man-made scriptures, but authorized scriptures which are coming directly from the Supreme Lord, which is given to us by the bona fide acharyas and revealed to us, the four Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas, the Ithyases, and of course the topmost for us in this present age is Srimad Bhagavatam, the spotless Purana, which gives us complete direct instructions based on scriptures of worshiping the Supreme Lord. So of course that Supreme Lord is none other than Radha and Krishna, which have been introduced to us by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, that the worship of Radha and Krishna is the highest. It goes beyond mode of goodness. It goes on the transcendental platform of Visuddha Sattva, pure mode of goodness. And therefore, when we are on this pure mode of goodness, by accepting the process of Krishna consciousness, then we come to the platform of worshiping Radha and Krishna. And through the worship of Radha and Krishna, we elevate ourselves. And of course, when we are in that position of worshiping Radha and Krishna, then comes to protect ourselves for whatever food we eat for sustenance. Everybody needs to eat something to sustain their good health and body. Now, foods are of course also mentioned in three modes in the Bhagavad Gita: foods in mode of ignorance, foods in mode of passion, and food in mode of goodness. So Krishna is saying in the seventh text, even the food each person prefers is of three kinds, according to the three modes of material nature. The same is true for sacrifice, austerities, and charity. Now here, the distinction between them. So Krishna is now going to give further elaboration about the different kinds of foods in different modes, the different kinds of sacrifices one performs in material world, in material existence. willingly or unwillingly. We have to perform certain sacrifices, also austerities, willingly or unwillingly. And sometimes charity also is done just because living entity has what the human person has been blessed with is the principle of compassion. So there is sometimes that compassionate nature in one's heart, but sometimes that compassion is also misplaced. So further we'll discuss that and understand in clarity where Krishna is now here the distinction between them. So in the purport, Prabhupada is saying, in terms of different situations in the modes of material nature, there are differences in the manner of eating and performing sacrifices, austerities, and charities. They are not at all conducted on the same level. Those who understand analytically what kind of performances are in what modes of material nature are actually wise. Those who consider all kinds of sacrifices or food or charity to be the same cannot discriminate. They are foolish. So in the 8th text, Krishna is explaining about the food. Foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increases the duration of life. Purity purifies one's existence and gives strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. So this is the most important aspect of understanding what Krishna is very clearly defining. That what is the food which is in mode of goodness is supposed to increase duration of your life, purify your existence, and give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. So we can understand that Krishna is very clearly defining what is good for a person who is in knowledge of scripture injunction. Therefore, he's saying that if we are indulging in food in mode of goodness, then it is very pleasing to the heart. The purpose of food is to increase the duration of one's life, purify the mind, and aid bodily strength. This is its only purpose. In the past, great authorities selected those foods that best aid health and increase life's duration, such as milk products, sugar, rice, wheat, fruits, and vegetables. These foods are very dear to those in the mode of goodness. Some other foods, such as baked corn or molasses, while not very palatable in themselves, can be made pleasant when mixed with milk or other foods. They are then in the mode of goodness. All these foods are pure by nature. So we can see that these are the descriptions and categories of foods described in the scriptures, and Prabhupada is elaborating them in the purport of what is good for you. And bottom line is that all these food which we take is only meant for one purpose, and that is to purify our existence so that our consciousness is elevated and we can have higher understanding. So of course, these are some of the foods which are in mode of goodness, which we should be very, very mindful that this is what we consume. And of course, not just consume these kind of foods in mode of goodness, but of course, Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita that food that is eaten, which is not offered to me in yagya, then you're already eating sin. So even if we indulge in eating vegetarian food, which is in mode of goodness, still it will not elevate our consciousness because it will still bind us to the material nature, and at best will be entangled in mode of goodness activities rather than transcend. So even though the foods which are mentioned here should be partaken for your sustenance, it should be first offered to the Supreme Lord. Foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and burning are dear to those in mode of passion. Such foods cause distress, misery, and disease. So of course, here is very nicely Krishna is explaining the disease condition of material world when we are suffering so many diseases in this world. This is due to the foods which we partake, which is in mode of passion, and also of course ignorance. And it's very categorically said here that such foods cause distress, misery, and disease. Foods in the mode of passion, which are bitter, too salty, or too hot, or overly mixed with red pepper, cause misery by reducing the mucus in the stomach, leading to disease condition. So of course, we all know, even the doctors recommend that we should not partake this kind of food stuff, which is the root cause of our diseases. So one has to abstain from that and rise from the mode of passion to goodness at least. So this slide is showing, someone eating chili, someone eating very spicy food, someone is eating very pungent food. This is all cause of our disease condition. And these are other stuff which we all really like, but they're all mode of passion, which are not really good for your health, but somehow due to our tongue, uncontrolled desire for tasty foods, we kind of indulge in this stuff. And then, of course, the rest is history, which is the disease condition. So food prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten. Food that is tasteless, decomposed, and prepared, and food consisting of remnants and untouchable things is dear to those in mode of darkness or ignorance. So again, Krishna is very clearly saying here that what is not at all very good for you is that food which is very tasteless, decomposed, smelly, untouchable. The foods in the mode of ignorance or darkness are essentially those that are not fresh. Any food cooked more than 3 hours before it is eaten, except prasadam, food offered to Lord. So Prabhupada is making here a distinction that sometimes food is offered to Krishna in a mode of goodness with the consciousness that this is for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, and then by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, we are permitted to partake the foods offered to Krishna as prasadam. So sometimes we find the prasadam is little more than 3 hours old, but still that is okay because it is considered Krishna prasadam. So he is saying it's considered to be in mode of darkness, except prasadam, because they are decomposing. Such foods give bad odor, which often attracts people in this mode and repulses those in the mode of goodness. So of course, food which is decomposing by nature's arrangement, that something which is not very fresh, after some influence of time, period of time, it begins to decompose. And anything which is decaying and decomposed is obviously not very healthy for one's sustenance or good health. These foods cause mental dullness and physical dumbness. Individuals who eat tamasi food tend towards depression, laziness, excessive sleep, and eating. So these are some of the results of eating foods in mode of ignorance, is that one becomes very much depressed and lazy and sleeps excessively due to depression and laziness. And of course, when you are caught up in this web, then you keep eating the same thing. And more you eat, the more you get caught up in this unfortunate situation. Very difficult to come out. Stale, artificial colored, and flavored preservatives added, cooked overnight, fermented foods or drinks, leftovers, prepared meat of animals dead long back, too cold, deep refrigerated foods are tamasi and ignorance. And of course, in this modern day, we think we are so civilized that we buy all the vegetables and freeze them in a freezer for longevity. But here, of course, Prabhupada is saying that these kind of foods, even though they may be in mode of goodness, but because they have been frozen for longevity of their shelf life, then it is still considered food in mode of ignorance, which is not going to help you in your spiritual consciousness or upliftment of your consciousness. This slide is showing, people are eating very, very degraded food. There's a slide showing someone, eating a dog, a snake, frog, other meat products, and these are all tamagun, which is not going to be at all helpful to one's spiritual upliftment. So one has to be very, very careful that what we eat. So the best food is a remnant of what is offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord says that he accepts preparations of vegetables, flour, and milk when offered with devotion. So of course, it is not just that we eat vegetarian food stuff, but the consciousness in which we prepare, and then in the consciousness in which we offer. So he said, offered with devotion. Patram paspam phalam toyam. So he said that all these categories of food stuff, yome bhakta prayacha, but offer it with love and devotion. Of course, devotion and love are the chief things or ingredients which the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts. But it is also mentioned that prasadam should be prepared in a particular way. Any food prepared by the injunctions of the scriptures and offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be taken even if prepared long, long ago, because such food is transcendental. Therefore, to make food antiseptic, eatable, and palatable for all persons, one should offer food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as I said, mentioned earlier on, that even though vegetarians is not sufficient, or food in mode of goodness is not sufficient, but it has to be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead with love and devotion, and prepared with proper consciousness, proper understanding. And then that food, as Prabhupada says, even if it's prepared long, long ago, it becomes transcendental, because food offered to the Supreme Lord with love and devotion becomes non-different from the Supreme Lord. And therefore, it has the potency to raise your consciousness from the lower mode to the higher mode. Sacrifices, of course, we all perform sacrifices in our different day-to-day life. As I said earlier on, that sometimes the sacrifices are imposed on us, and sometimes it is performed due to some want of need, that if you perform such and such a sacrifice, then you will get such and such a result from it. So sometimes we are either doing it willingly or unwillingly, just to satisfy our existence. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed according to the direction of scriptures is a matter of duty by those who desire no reward, is of the nature of goodness. So Krishna is very clearly saying that sacrifice which is supposed to be performed according to the direction of scriptures and as a matter of duty, without any desire for reward, that is in goodness. So Prabhupada is saying the general tendency is to offer sacrifice with some purpose in mind. But here it is stated that sacrifice should be performed without any such desire. It should be done as a matter of duty. Take, for example, the performers of ritual in churches. Generally, they are performed with the purpose of material benefit, but that is not in the mode of goodness. One should go to the temple or church as a matter of duty, offer respects to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and offer flowers and eatables without any purpose of obtaining material benefit. Everyone thinks that there is no use in going to the temple just to worship God, but worship for economic benefit is not recommended in the scriptural injunction. One should go simply to offer respect to the deity. That will place one in the mode of goodness. It is a duty of every civilized man to obey the injunctions of the scripture and offer respects to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's very clear that the purpose of visiting the temple or place of worship is to offer our respects and honor to the Supreme Lord and seek his blessings and his guidance. And that is the only purpose, because as it is mentioned in the Upanishad, Ishyavasa Idam Sarvam, that the need of every living entity is already preordained by the divine providence of the Supreme Lord. So whatever is yours is destined for you, whether you pray or you do not pray, will still come to you, because this is the requirement of your sustenance and necessity for your existence. So the Supreme Lord in his wisdom sees very clearly what one deserves and what is one's requirement for sustenance, so that he provides very clearly without any discrimination. So as Prabhupada mentions, that even the small ant to the biggest elephant, the sustenance is provided by the Supreme Lord's arrangement. Then we come in between the ant and the large elephant. So our sustenance is also going to be provided by the Supreme Lord's arrangement. Simply we have to have faith in him that yes, the good Lord has made this creation and therefore he will provide my necessities. And underline, he will only provide your necessities, your needs, and not your wants. But unfortunately, we are so full of want. I want this, I want that, I want that, I want. We so much get entangled in I want, that we actually forget what is our necessity. We think our want is our necessity. So then we become completely confused in our approach of what is our real need and what is our want. We cannot distinguish between the two. So here is a beautiful altar of the Lordships and a beautiful offerings given to the Lord. simply for their pleasure. And of course, the Lord is so kind and compassionate. When you offer him wonderful eatables, prepared with proper understanding and proper consciousness, and offer for the Lord's pleasure, he in turn sanctifies all this food, and then he gives it back to you for your sustenance. This is the greatness of the Supreme Lord, that even though we offer it to him, he returns it back to us for our own good, for our upliftment. So one should not fear that if I give something to God, then what will I get? And I will lose. You will never lose by giving anything to Krishna. But the sacrifice performed for some material benefit or for the sake of pride or chief of Bharatas, you should know to be in mode of passion. So that which any sacrifice, any offerings you make, whether it is to the ghost or to the demigods or to some powerful person, it is in mode of passion, and it is with the mindset that I will get some benefits from it, I will get some reciprocation for it. But as mentioned earlier on, and the Bhagavad Gita is clearly saying that all these benefits which you may be a recipient of are not permanent, they are impermanent. They will vanquish very quickly and be done and dusted with it. So it is not an everlasting thing. Nothing in the material world is lasting. So here people perform all kinds of karma kandi, puja, sacrifices, offerings, to get some benefits, whether you want a good wife or a good husband or good children or a good house or a good job and so forth. And we are recommended by so-called pandits. If you perform this, that, and other pujas, then these are the benefits. And we so become taken by that we are fooled by that. We indulge in these things. There is no guarantee, because as I said, Krishna is saying, Ishyavasadam Sarvam, that whatever is yours is already destined to you. You're going to get it anyway, regardless of it. Except that Krishna says, Karmani evadhikara. So just do your duty, and after doing your duty, you will get your due deserves. So any sacrifice performed without regard for the direction of the scriptures, without distribution of prasadam, spiritual food, without chanting the Vedic hymns, the remuneration to the priest, and without faith is considered to be in the mode of ignorance. So of course, sometimes we perform also certain rituals, sacrifices, without knowing properly the process. And then it is very clearly said by Krishna here that there are certain injunctions which one must follow in order to get success in your sacrifices or your rituals. And if it's not done with proper understanding, then of course it is considered that it is in mode of ignorance, and the results will not be according to your desire, even though you may perform these things. So faith, Prabhupada is saying, faith in the mode of darkness or ignorance is actually faithlessness. That even though you may do all these things, but it is considered faithlessness. That it is not of any importance. Sometimes people worship some demigods just to make money, and then spend the money for recreation, ignoring the scriptural injunctions. Such ceremonial shows of religiosity are not accepted as genuine. They are all in the mode of darkness. They produce a demoniac mentality and do not benefit human society. So generally, it is said in a human society, which is a cultural society of some reckoning and understanding, that you do for the benefit of the society. The human society at large should benefit from all your sacrifices, your rituals. But here it is saying that they only produce demoniac mentality and do not benefit human society. So it creates a very unpleasantable society which we live in, and it's demoniac. And when it's demoniac mentality, then there is nothing but distress and suffering. So in this slide, from the 7th chapter, text 13, again, the verse is very clear. Sometimes people worship some demigods to make money and so forth. So we see that in our experience, many people are so much performing all kinds of worship of demigods just to get some powerful position, some money, and acquire material gains. But what is value of this? Because you may have it today, but nobody is satisfied with all that. we see in our experience that there are many persons who have got unlimited riches, but they're not happy. Yeah. We know that some individuals like the Tatas and the Birlas and the Ambanis, or the Bill Gates and so many Western leaders or powerful businessmen who have got money. And then we look at Middle East, where it is a God-forsaken place, where it is very difficult to live in 50 degrees temperatures. There's no greenery and only sand. But somehow Tamagun has blessed them with so-called black gold. They get oil and they have got riches. And in the Middle East, the people who have access to this oil, they have unlimited riches. But unfortunately, there's no happiness for them. They are not happy at all. They are trying to be happy, creating an artificial situation, but happiness is eluding them. So the happiness is only there when you actually have a proper understanding and have reason about these three modes of material nature. And now austerities. This is an interesting aspect, that austerities are sometimes performed knowingly for some material gains. Other times we are put in a situation where we have no choice but to be austere. For example, someone who is a beggar and he has no access to quality food, he has to sometimes perform austerities by begging, and sometimes he has no food to eat for days and ends. And he may say, oh, I'm performing austerities, but he's not willingly performing the austerities, he's forced to perform austerities. So in this material world, our condition is like that. Sometimes we willingly perform austerities for some material benefits. Other times we are forced into this situation. So in text 14, Krishna is saying, austerities of the body consist of worshipping the Supreme Lord. It's very interesting here. It's austerities of the body consist in the worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, the superiors like the fathers and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. So very clearly Krishna is giving us direction. And what kind of austerities which are given in the scriptural injunctions, which will reap you the benefits, which will be of uplifting you from the lower modes and raise you to the highest mode of pure goodness, where then you are transcended from the material nature or the influence of material nature. So the Supreme Lord explains the different kinds of austerities and penances. First, he explains the austerities and penances practiced by the body. One should offer or learn to offer respect to God or to demigods, the perfect, qualified brahmanas, and the spiritual master, the superiors like father, mother, and any person who is conversant with Vedic knowledge. This should be given proper respect. One should practice cleansing oneself externally and internally, and he should learn to become simple in his behavior. Now, Prabhupada says that the one who comes to Krishna consciousness, he can cleanse himself externally by regularly taking baths and wearing fresh clothes, internally by chanting the holy name of the Lord and partaking foodstuff which he takes for his sustenance through his mouth and goes inside his body, by only indulging in prasadam, the food offered to the Lord. So internally you'll be cleansed, externally you will cleanse, and this will create a better situation and environment where your behavior will change towards positiveness and you will raise your consciousness. He should not do anything which is not sanctioned by the scriptural injunction. He should not indulge in sex outside of marriage or married life. For sex is sanctioned in the scriptures only in marriage, not otherwise. This is called celibacy. These are the penances and austerities as far as the body is concerned. So Krishna has given clear direction, and his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master, is also guiding us further, enlightening us that what are the austerities and penances which we have to perform by the body. And if you do it in a proper understanding, as mentioned here, according to the scriptural injunction, then it will elevate you to the highest platform. So Here we see there is a devotee worshiping the Supreme Lord, then one who is taking knowledge from the spiritual master. Here a beautiful slide depicting Krishna and Balaram paying respects to their father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, and then of course giving honor to the Brahmana. Of course, in this case, the supreme Brahmana is none other than Vamandev himself. So showing respect and honor, these are the activities which we can do with the body rather than do other kinds of austerities, which we'll mention further, we'll see. Austerities of speech consist of speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regular reciting Vedic literatures. So, of course, Bhagavatam really says, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, that regularly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, words which will enlighten us. And when you speak words should be very truthful, very pleasing and beneficial, not that which will agitate others and disturb others. And the purport Prabhupada said, one should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instructions of his student. But such a teacher should not speak to those who are not his students if he will agitate their mind. This is the penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. So Prabhupada many times says, one should not indulge in Gramyam Katha or idle talk. Generally, we find ourselves very much entangled and attracted towards idle talk. But when there is a talk of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, some Krishna Katha, then we are not so eager because we haven't developed that taste for it, because we are still influenced by mode of ignorance and mode of passion. And one who is attracted by mode of goodness, then there is some attraction to hear the transcendental subject glorifying the Supreme Lord. The threefold austerities performed with transcendental faith by men not expecting material benefits, but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called the austerities in goodness. So in the 70th text, Krishna is very clearly saying that all the austerities which we perform should be done only for the sake of the Supreme and for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. And that is only considered which is in goodness. So penance performed out of pride and for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship is said to be in a mode of passion. It is neither stable nor permanent. Now we see that many times there are many personalities who perform lots of austerities to gain respect, honor, and worship. But as Krishna is saying, that it is neither stable nor permanent. So Dhruva Maharaj, although he is considered a great saintly person, a devotee of the Lord, but prior to him getting audience of the Supreme Lord, he had pride in his heart. What was his pride? That I will go and seek out the Supreme Lord and then ask him that why I took birth in the womb of my mother and not in my stepmother's womb, and therefore I could not sit on my father's lap or inherit my father's kingdom. Now that I want something, and who gives something to you, which is given by the Supreme Lord? So his mother instructed that only God can help you. So not knowing who God is, saying, I'll go and seek out God. So he goes into the forest and he performs severe austerities to gain the audience of the Supreme Lord. And what was the purpose? Gain name, fame, power. He wanted a kingdom greater than his grandfather. But of course, the transcendental nature is that when one actually gets audience of the Supreme Lord, then all that is material in the heart is vanquished very quickly, and the heart becomes purified, and your desire becomes purified. And only at that point, there is no other desire except the shelter of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. So Dhruva Maharaj was such person, as mentioned here, that he was performing this out of gaining respect, honor, and worship. Penance performed out of foolishness, with self-torture, or to destroy or injure others, it is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So we have seen that many tantrics, they perform this kind of rituals piercing their bodies with the hooks and pulling kind of chariots and all kinds of austerities which are really harming the body in expectation of getting some kind of power. But as Krishna mentions here, that this is penance is performed out of foolishness, with self-torture and destroying an injury. So you can see anybody who has little intelligence, that this kind of austerities is not beneficial to anyone, but just harming oneself and bringing pain and misery upon oneself. So there are instances of foolish penances undertaken by demons like Hiranyakashipu, who perform austerities, who performed austere penances to become immortal and kill the demigods. He prayed to Brahma for such things, or ultimately he was killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To undergo penances of something, excuse me, to undergo penance of something which is impossible is certainly in the mode of ignorance. And why Prabhupada is saying to undergo penance for something which is impossible is certainly in mode of ignorance, because Hiranyakashipu wanted to perform penances to get blessings of Brahma to become immortal. Now we know that the very nature of this material world is that there is no immortality here. There is only mortality. For one who has taken birth, death is certain, whether 100 years or 1 million years. Regardless, at some point, time will end and you have to give up. There is no immortality. The only immortality is that when you are freed from this material engagement, go to the spiritual world, and in the spiritual world, there is no birth, death, old age, or disease. So, of course, this is in mode of ignorance. So we all know from this beautiful painting in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Hiranyakashipu was performing such austerities that his body was all eaten away by ants, and there was ant hill around his body, but his soul kept on meditating on Lord Brahma, and finally Brahma comes and gives him the boon. But of course, it is still of no value, because in the end, that boon is of no value at all, because immortality was not achieved and he was finally killed. Charity is, of course, as I said, that when we are blessed with the human birth, then there is one quality which is part and parcel of the humanity, is that we have compassion. And when we have compassion, then due to compassion, we perform different kinds of charities. So Krishna says in text 20, charity given out of duty without expectation of return to a proper time and place and to a worthy person is considered to be in mode of goodness. So Prabhupada is elaborating this further in the purport. In the Vedic literature, charity given to a person engaged in spiritual activities is recommended. So very clearly here, Prabhupada saying the distinction should be not misplaced of compassion, but one should understand that charity given to a person engaged in spiritual activities is recommended. There is no recommendation for giving charity indiscriminately. Spiritual perfection is always a consideration. Therefore, charity is recommended to be given at a place of pilgrimage, or at a lunar or solar eclipse, or at the end of the month, or to a qualified Brahmana or a Vaishnava devotee, or in a temple. Such charity should be given without any consideration of return. So when we are performing these charitable acts, it should be done purely as charity, means giving away without any expectation of anything. If there is expectation, then of course it is more in mode of ignorance and passion. So this story of Vamanadev and Bali Maharaj is there, that Bali Maharaj, out of his compassionate heart, when a young Brahmana comes, not knowing that he's the Supreme Lord, but just as a Brahmana, and as a king, he knows that his duty is to give charity to Brahmana. So he readily agreed to give charity to Brahmana. But Sukracharya, his spiritual master, knows that this Brahmana is not an ordinary Brahmana. He is the Supreme Lord. He has come to cheat you. But nonetheless, Bali Maharaj knows at the right place, at the right time, one must give proper charity. And therefore, this is scriptural injunction, scriptural direction. Therefore, he is perfectly situated when he's giving charity to Vamanadev as a young Brahmana. But charity performed with expectation of some return, or with a desire of fruity activities, or in a grudging mood, it is said to be charity in mode of passion. So of course, sometimes, as I said, we do it out of compassion in our heart. Sometimes we are grudgingly give because some of our seniors may sort of encourage us that you must give something, out of compassion. But of course, this compassion is misplaced because it is out of mode of passion, and therefore even grudgingly you may give something, but the results will not be appropriate. So in the purport, Prabhupada is saying, charity is sometimes performed for elevation to the heavenly kingdom, or sometimes with great trouble and with repentance afterwards. Why have I spent so much in this way? Charity is also sometimes given under some obligation, at the request of a superior. This kind of charities are said to be given in the mode of passion. So it is very clearly Prabhupada saying that these are not appropriate charities which one should give, because the result is going to be negative, or you will still be entangled in the mode of passion. And of course, in mode of passion, then you cannot think beyond that, and therefore you will be clouded in your judgments about your existence and proper duty of oneself according to the scriptural injunctions. So generally we see here in this slide that there is always, when you give something, then there is expectation that if I give something, then I will get in return. Of course, in our Indian custom, we give gifts during birthdays or anniversaries or marriage ceremonies. And when we do that, the recipient of our gifts make a list of what they have gotten from who. And then when time comes for reciprocation, they kind of reciprocate in return and give a return gift. So this is not a very good way of doing charity or giving in gift. This is in mode of passion. So it is not going to benefit anyone at all. And in the 22nd text, Krishna says, and charity performed at an impure place, at an improper time, or unworthy person, or without proper attention and respect, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So if charity is given at in impure places or in improper time to unworthy persons, then this is all in mode of ignorance. So contributions for indulgence in intoxication and gambling are not encouraged here. This sort of contribution, that sort of contribution is in the mode of ignorance. Such charity is not beneficial. Rather, sinful persons are encouraged. Similarly, if a person gives charity to a suitable person without respect or without attention, that sort of charity is also said to be in mode of darkness. So sometimes people say we want to give charity, and there are so many charitable institutions in the world, Save the Children's Fund, Red Cross, and so forth, where they are saying we are feeding the poor, clothing the poor. And this is all considered in one sense charity in mode of darkness or ignorance. And then of course other times we say we want to feed the poor, or a beggar is there and we feed. So many times, at least here in London, we see when we go downtown, we find beggars sitting there, homeless and begging for money. And literally they're not begging for money for their sustenance of some housing or some clothing or some fooding, but they just want money for intoxication, drugs and alcohol. Because I can say very categorically that in this country, in England, we have a welfare system where the government gives those who are deprived of basic necessities. If you have no job, no money, then the government will make arrangement of giving you welfare housing, welfare food, welfare clothing. So there is no need to beg. Your basic necessities are provided by the state. But still you find people who are begging simply for financing their intoxicating habits of drugs and alcohol. So that kind of charity is, of course, in mode of ignorance, and it's not recommended. Anything done as a sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, O son of Pritha, is impermanent. It is called asat, and it is useless both in this life and the next life. So in the 28th verse, Krishna is saying very clearly here and very categorically that anything which is done, sacrifices, charities, penances, whatever action, activities you perform, if it's done without faith in the Supreme, then the result of it is impermanent. And finally, Krishna says, it is called asat and is useless both in this life and the next life. Because whatever you do in this life, it will not benefit you because it is impermanent. And of course, the next life, due to your actions and activities in mode of ignorance, mode of passion, and even up to mode of goodness, you have to take rebirth. And then in the next life, it still won't be of any help to you because it will not free you from the three modes of material nature. Therefore, Krishna says to Arjuna, "Oh Arjuna, rise above these three modes of material nature. Come on, Visuddha Sattva, pure mode of goodness." So even the mode of goodness is not good enough, because mode of goodness is to some extent bring you a step closer to that higher stage, which is Visuddha Sattva, which is pure mode of goodness. So when you are pure mode of goodness, you have transcended the effects of the three modes of material nature, and therefore you will act purely for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord according to the scriptural injunctions and guidance by the seers of truth, the spiritual master. So therefore, that will be of beneficial and free you in your advancement in your life, so that you will come to that ultimate liberation, go back home, back to Godhead. Now, in the purport, Prabhupada is saying, in the conditional state, people are attracted to worshipping demigods, ghosts, yakshas like Kuvera. The mode of goodness is better than the mode of passion or ignorance. But one who takes directly to Krishna consciousness is transcendental to all three modes of material nature. Now, this is very important aspect in Prabhupada's purport. One who takes to Krishna consciousness is transcendental to all the three modes of material nature. Now, sometimes we have taken to Krishna consciousness. That is why I assume that we are having this discussion today on the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that we have taken to Krishna consciousness and we want to understand the knowledge which is imparted by Krishna and by Prabhupada. But even though we have taken to Krishna consciousness, he's saying Krishna consciousness is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. So even though we have taken to Krishna consciousness, our activities sometimes are still in mode of goodness or mode of passion or mode of ignorance. Therefore, we have to rise above everything and bring everything to the central object, and that object is Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Then you will be transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Although there is a process of gradual elevation, if one, by the association of pure devotees, takes directly to Krishna consciousness, that is the best way, and that is recommended. So association of pure devotees who are fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, that is the best way, and that is the recommendation in this chapter. To achieve success in this way, one must first find a proper spiritual master and receive training under his direction. Then one can achieve faith in the Supreme. When that faith matures in course of time, it is called love of God. So of course, Prabhupada is very clearly saying that we have to take shelter from a proper bona fide spiritual master who is properly situated in his transcendental position as a servant of the Supreme Lord and is imparting this knowledge on behalf of the Supreme Lord. And that will also have an impact on us, that our faith in the Supreme Lord will increase. And when that faith matures in course of time, it is called love of God. So one has to take proper shelter from the spiritual master and learn from him under his expert guidance to follow the scriptural injunctions. And thereby you will become very successful in your spiritual progress. Just a little deviation here, that some people sent me WhatsApp messages saying that, Maharaj, we are performing Vishwa Panchaka, and what we should do on the first day, we are taking a little cow dung and then cow urine and little milk and this and that. And I would say, why you are performing this? For some material benefits. Because as far as I see, that His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya, the spiritual master, the most purest of the purest devotee, bona fide spiritual master, has not recommended this for us. Therefore, why we are speculating this, although there are scriptural injunctions saying that you do this for these benefits. And the whole chapter 17, Krishna is saying, don't do for any motives. You should have no motivations or no expectation. Simply you do whatever activity you do is for the pleasure of Krishna and Guru. And why I say Guru is when Guru is pleased, then that means Krishna is pleased with the activities. Because on behalf of Krishna, the Guru accepts the disciple's service, guides him in a proper way so that he serves in a proper direction so that it is pleasing to the Supreme Lord. So we should be very careful that we do not get entangled with all these rituals which are motivational. So on this note, I will say, be very cautious, be very, very conscious and aware that the scriptural injunctions given by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, is what we should be following. And if we follow that, success will come to all of us, and we will surely make our journey perfect and complete. I'll stop here, and we'll take now some questions and answers.
Thank
and
you,
comments.
Maharaj. Thank you very much. And since you mentioned about Bhishma Panchaka, Maharaj, so you're basically saying that because it is now, we find that within the ISKCON world, there is a lot of stress being given to Bhishma Panchaka. So is it something you're saying that it's not really necessary to follow?
Prabhupada says very clearly that simply you perfect your chanting, perfect your hearing. You read Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, if you really want to do Bhishma Panchaka, then on these 5 days, you minimize your material needs and you increase your chanting and increase your reading and hearing. That is real Bhishma Panchaka. But all these other rituals is not recommended. And as far as my understanding, that all these years I've been reading Prabhupada's books and also hearing from Prabhupada's disciples who are in Prabhupada's association. And in those 11 years of Prabhupada from 1966, when he established ISKCON, till 1977, he took Samadhi. Prabhupada never followed Bhishma Panchaka. So why we are indulging in these things? There's no need, because Prabhupada said all that is required for you to become perfectly situated as a devotee, the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu, is given to you by me in my books and my teachings. Simply just follow that. Don't add anything. Don't subtract anything. Keep it simple. And that way you'll make advancement in your spiritual life. Otherwise, we're thinking, if I do this, if I do that, then I'll quickly advance. I'll get more advancement. There's no such advancement like that. Everything is that, as I said in the concluding paragraph of Prabhupada's purport, that by taking shelter of the spiritual master, your devotion and faith will increase and it will mature and it will become perfect and you will transcend the 3 modes of material nature. So Prabhupada has given us a formula, very simple, very straightforward. There's nothing complicated about it. But we, because thinking that I am smart, I'm intelligent, I will try to do this. And all this, we are doing all these things, is Krishna is cautioning us in chapter 17. The 3 modes of material nature is impacting us, and because of that, we are acting on this platform. And Krishna says, rise above these things. Simply don't get entangled with this. But we, due to our immaturity, we get entangled on all these things. And then we think that, oh, this is Krishna consciousness. This is not Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said, all you have to do is keep yourself internally clean by chanting Hare Krishna, externally by taking bath, waking early in the morning, worshipping the Supreme Lord, worshipping the spiritual master, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting 16 rounds at least of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and partake of food stuff which is offered to Krishna, only Krishna Prasadam. And that is all that is required for us to do, whether you are a brahmachari, whether you are a grihastha, whether you're vanaprastha, whether you're a sannyasi, whether you're Babaji, doesn't matter. Whether you're living in a temple, you're living in a household, regardless, these are basic principles are practiced by all. And this is what Prabhupada has given us. So in my understanding, I would not be bothered with all these things. Just like the first Ekadashi on the 26th of Bhishma Panchaka. Some devotees here in the manner, few of them, they said, oh, we'll stay up all night. So they stayed up all night struggling. then next morning they're sleeping. What is the value? Because the next morning they cannot do their service because they stayed up all night. What is the value? Then some devotees, some of my disciples wrote from Bali saying that here we are following Vishnu Panchaka and not eating any grains for next 5 days. I said, what? Why you are doing that? If you are only as a personal, offering to Krishna as your austerities, you abstain from grains, that's fine. But what about Krishna? You have to give Krishna grains. So for next 5 days, you don't offer Krishna grains because you know that in the lockdown situation, whatever you offer to Krishna is only going to be consumed by the devotees in the ashram. If it's grains, you will not consume it. Then what will you do with that grains? You will throw them away. Because after 5 days of acclimating all these grains, it will begin to decompose. Then you cannot eat that. Even though it's transcendental, we are not Raghunath Goswami that we can take rotten rice from Jagannath temple and still be okay, because Raghunath's body was not material, spiritual. Unfortunately, we are Panchabhut. We are made of 5 material elements, and therefore we will get sick. So I said, why are you introducing all these things? Prabhupada never did these things. But this whole concept is that, if you do all these things, we will advance very quickly. But my friend, I'm sorry, you will not make advancement, but you will be just more entangled by the 3 modes of material nature, and your activities and actions will be guided by those modes, and you won't be free from it.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for clarifying on this issue, because there is apparently a lot going on. So thank you very much. We have some questions. So I have a written question sent in, which I will ask, which is from Anupama Radharani Mataji. And then after that, we will open the session for the devotees to ask directly from Maharaj. So the question is, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Thank you so much for taking us through chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita. It is stated in this chapter that foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life. We have seen sometimes that devotees may not live long, but some people who consume liquor and meat live well into their old age and are relatively healthy and attribute their long life to having some tamasic food. How do we understand this? This is part number 1. Second part of the question is, what is the destination of those who worship certain demigods with no expectation for anything in return, but do so because their family or community worships them? So these are 2 separate questions.
Okay. The first question is that we find that there are people who have long lives. Now, I was just reading a report a few days ago about, someone sent me this article about the Japanese. They have certain rituals of eating certain kind of foods, raw fish and this and that and everything. And they have a long life. They live almost into their 90s. And there was one guy in Wales, he was 103 years old. And the journalist asked a question that, sir, what is the secret of your long life? He's saying wine, women, enjoyment. So, of course, we know from Bhagavad Gita chapter 17 that these are not going to give you longevity of life. Now, every one of us individually, when we take birth in a particular body, we have a certain lifespan that is given to us as a grace by the Supreme Lord. That is our destiny. So we may live 50 years, we may live 100 years, we may live longer. That is by the grace of the Lord. And whatever time span you have got, that's all there is. No matter what kind of foodstuffs you eat or what kinds of arrangements you make, will not increase it by a second. But sometimes we find that our lives are cut short due to some accident. Prabhupada does mention that there are accidental deaths when our lifespan is shortened. And therefore, you have to come back again to complete the rest of the prison sentence, as Prabhupada says, in this body. Now, and Krishna is saying that it gives you longer duration of life. Doesn't mean that it is your number of years will increase, but the duration of your life increases for the better, means that you won't be suffering from a disease condition. Otherwise, we have seen that people who are in those disease conditions, and for 5, 6, 7 years they are bedridden, they cannot move, they cannot do anything, but they cannot die also, and they are living a miserable experience of life. So what my understanding and take is that when we are eating foods in mode of goodness, that will give us a duration of life which will be a happy and healthy one till the last breath. And at the last moment, when we depart from this body, then at that point, our consciousness is focused and we'll remember the Supreme Lord and leave this body in good health. That is my take on this. Otherwise, you can say, like people like Hiranyakashipu, he did austerities for thousands of years. But what benefit was there? So this is not our goal. We have to understand in a proper perspective that in Kali Yuga, our life expectancy is of certain age and a certain number of years. And if you live properly according to that, then probably you will live to that. As Prabhupada says, that generally in Kali Yuga, everybody is endowed with 100 years, because that is the lifespan of Kali Yuga. In Dwarapa Yuga was 1,000 years, and then in Treta Yuga 10,000 years, and then Kali Yuga in Satya Yuga was 100,000 years. So anyway, in present age is 100 years. So if you live your life properly, then you'll live a good, healthy life right to the end. Otherwise, you'll end up with all kinds of disease conditions, and it will bring distress and misery upon you. So that is one aspect of my understanding. And the second one question was about worshipping demigods, because maybe society, community is putting peer pressure onto you without any expectation. So as Krishna very clearly says, if you worship demigods, and Prabhupada says also that if you worship demigods, then you will go to the planets of the demigods. And once you have finished your stay in the heavenly planets of demigods, and you come back down to the lower regions, and then take up again opportunity to become a human being on this planet, and then maybe by mercy of the Lord, get into contact with the pure devotee and take up Krishna consciousness, and then free yourself and go back to the spiritual world. So either way, we should not be sentimental about these things, and if the family which we are brought up in are very devout followers of, say, certain demigods, and they don't have a higher understanding of Krishna, the Supreme, then Krishna says, leave it be, because that is their level of understanding. And their level of understanding is there because that is all they deserve from their previous activities, previous actions. This is up to their level. But Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that even though they are devoutly worshipping demigods, do not disturb their faith, because indirectly they are worshipping me, and therefore I will give them some benefits. And that is Krishna's prerogative. What he gives, how he gives, that is up to him. We cannot ask that this much Krishna should give, or that much Krishna should give, or we should not expect anything. But Krishna says that they are following, and indirectly they are worshipping me. So leave it be, and gradually they will raise themselves from that faith to a faith higher and higher, till to the point that when they realize that Krishna is the Supreme. Even the demigods are a recipient of their powers from the Supreme. Just like Prahlad Maharaj says to his father, that my dear father, you got this boon from Brahma of immortality, but you see, that power Brahma is also getting from Krishna, who is the Supreme Lord. So your powers are of no value because he can finish you off. And say, no, he cannot. He cannot kill me because inside, outside, up, down, this, that, all conditions are fulfilled. And Krishna says, okay, you think you are smart. I am smarter than you. And he takes the form of Nrsimhadev and he finishes him off. So the point is that all this worship of demigods is not recommended for one who understands scriptural injunctions and directives. So very clearly, Prabhupada is mentioning, and also Krishna is saying that all these things should be done according to the scriptural injunctions and directions. If you have a proper understanding of scriptural understanding and directions, then you cannot go wrong. But if you don't, then Prabhupada is saying that you have to take shelter of a person in knowledge who can give you the right knowledge. So therefore, we have to seek for that proper shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who is coming in a bona fide disciplic line, who is giving a pure and clear message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and connect us through the process, and thereby we can make progress in our spiritual path with the proper understanding and proper guidance.
Thank you, Maharaj. So I would request now all the devotees, you can switch on your videos. And I see a hands up by Murlidhar Prabhu. So please switch on your videos and please directly ask the question from Maharaj. So Murlidhar Prabhu, you want to go first since you raised your hand?
Humble obeisance to you. Guru Maharaj, one question, Maharaj. Since we are in Middle East, we are earning money in Middle East from the people who are in mostly 100% in Tamoguna. So such kind of money, when we are earning and we are eating that money, of course, if we are doing a little percentage towards the charity also, then if when we are eating such kind of money, is it possible to grow spiritually? The development will be there, or how to purify if we want to purify?
You see,
Hare Krishna.
Even though you may be earning money in the Middle East, as you say, they are very much in Tamaguna. But regardless, you are doing an honest service. You're not doing some cheating service or cheating your employers. You are doing honest hard work. So due to that, you are getting your salary. But what you utilize that money for is for a good cause. So you give something to charity, like as Prabhupada says, give it to a saintly person who is preaching the message of Krishna, or an institution which is promoting Krishna consciousness. These are all in more of pure goodness, charity. Secondly, you are earning money for your own sustenance. So therefore, whatever money you have earned, you use that money for buying things which are for your use. And who are you? You are a devotee of Krishna. Therefore, that you are offering these as a service to Krishna, because it is aiding you to do your service. So whatever you do as an offering, in terms of personal use, but you are using that as service to Krishna, the devotee of Krishna, then there is no entanglement. That is why, in Gujarat we say dhandho. They ask, "Kaun sa dhanda kar rahe aap log?" Hindi mein bolte hai wo bhi. I don't know if you understand Hindi. Hindi mein bolte hai, "Dhanda kaun sa dhanda hai?" So dhanda means dhan ko dho. धन को कैसे हम धुलाई करते हैं, क्योंकि all types of money earned is obviously some mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness, and all mixing is there. So you have to purify that dhan or wealth you are earning. How do you purify it? One, of course, certain portion you offer it to Krishna, and certain portion you keep it for yourself, sustenance. But because you are a devotee of Krishna, therefore, what you buy is for devotees of Krishna, including yourself. It's not that we give to others as devotees of Krishna, but you are also a devotee of Krishna. So why you should do injustice to yourself and give it to all the other devotees? You are also a devotee. So Krishna sees that in a positive light, that here is my devotee. He or she needs sustenance. He needs clothing. He needs fooding. He needs this, that, and other. So they are using that money for that purpose. So they are my devotees. So you will be freed from that reactions which you get from that kind of money, which is otherwise used for other activities than Krishna or his devotee. So I would not worry so much about it. Of course, I would be concerned if you are earning livelihood by opening a butcher shop and encouraging slaughter of animals, or you yourself slaughter animals and sell animals like that, and that would be not a very good business to be in, then one should change. Because as I said, that I believe firmly what Krishna is saying, karmani eva adhikarastu ma phaleshu kadachana. Do your duty sincerely and properly. And secondly, Krishna says, I will give you the results. Now, whatever results we're gonna get, if I have a butcher shop or I have a grocery shop, what my earning is going to be is the same. I'm not going to get a penny less or penny more, because what is destined to me is going to come to me. So even if I sell groceries, I'm still going to make same kind of money, which is destined to me as a butcher. So why not open a grocery store and sell foods in mode of goodness rather than food in tamagun? And also killing animals is even worse than tamagun. It's sinful, taking a life. And of course, if you take a life, then life for a life. You take a life of animal this life, next life, you'll be born and they will take your life. And you will caught up in this web so much that you have taken so many animals' lives, then so many animals will take your life so many times, and it's difficult to come out of it until some stage where you stop all this karma. Then you will then start a clean slate, and then it will be, hopefully, you can progress. So I would be not concerned so much that if you're doing an honest, good job, sincerity, and not doing a thieving business or stealing business or cheating business, then you should be worried. But if you're doing an honest job, then whatever salary you earn, you use it for, as I said, some towards charity and some towards your own use to upkeep yourself as devotees of Krishna, and also help you become a better devotee. Because all these things are necessity: a good clean home, good clean clothes, good quality, sustainable, food in mode of goodness. All this is required. And then you offer this all to Krishna, and then take that as prasadam or grace of the Lord upon you, and you won't be entangled by these things, and you'll be completely free from all these things.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you.
Maharaj, the next question comes from Madan Mohan Prabhu from Gauranga Desh. Madan Mohan Prabhu, please, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Danda Pranam, this is Madan Mohan Devadas. Maharaj, in your slide, you have said that worshipping demigod is not recommendable as per Vedic injunction. Then worshipping the Radha Krishna is the worshipable deity. I agree, Maharaj. That Lord Ram is none other than Lord Krishna. After defeating Ravana, before going back to Ayodhya, he went to Rameshwar, he worshipped Lord Shiva. Just I want to know that background of worshipping Lord Shiva. Even Lord Krishna also advised Arjuna, take blessing from Lord Shiva. Even Arjuna also using a Hanuman flag over his chariot. So just I want some clarification, Maharaj, regarding that. Lord Ram worshipping Lord Shiva in Rameshwaram. Just can you explain, Maharaj? Hare Krishna.
In Krishna's pastimes, nowhere Krishna is worshipping demigods, even Lord Shiva. Okay? And we know that pastime of Govardhan Puja, where Nanda Maharaj is offering to Indra, and Krishna is saying, why? Stop this. Don't offer this. Offer to Govardhan instead. Govardhan is our provider. So Krishna, as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is not bound by any rules, regulations. That is why he's called Purna Purushottam. He is in his complete absolute form. Now, when Lord Ramachandra, it's the same Krishna, but when he appeared in Treta Yuga as Dasarath Nandan, Sri Ram, he came as Maryada Purushottam. So as a Maryada Purushottam, he said that I will have to follow certain protocols because I have come as an ordinary person. Just like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, no different from the same Sri Krishna, Vrindavan Krishna, the Banshidhari Krishna, but he said that I have come as a devotee. So he's acting on a platform of a devotee. So Lord Ramachandra was acting as an ordinary human being, as Maryada Purushottam. And therefore, in the material context, he is also showing that not necessarily that we worship these demigods, but we show honor and respect to them. So Lord Shiva was worshipped in Rameshwar. For what purpose? to seek his blessings that he is going to cross over the water bodies.
Devasri. Devasri.
Hare Krishna. So anyway, so that is the reasoning why Lord Shiva was worshipped and offered prayers. So similarly, even Lord Ramachandra paid obeisances and respect to the Samudra god. And he said that I'm going to step over you and cross over to Lanka. So kindly forgive me. So he's showing that as a human being, as ordinary mortals, we should not be disrespectful to any demigods because they are also pure devotees of Krishna. Remember, they are performing a particular role and duty on behalf of Krishna. Therefore, we don't show disrespect. We show honor to everyone. And by showing honor and respect, as I showed one of the slides, that one of the penances and austerities is that by offering respects to the spiritual master, to the elderly, to the parents, to the demigods, this is also done in mode of goodness. So we should be very, very clear that worshipping and showing respect and honor is two different things. Worshipping is that you think that they are the supreme. Only the supreme is worshipable and none other. Only other than the Supreme Lord is worshipable is his pure devotee who is the spiritual master. Why? Because he is worshipped not as God, but as a representative of God. And therefore, he is worshipable, that he is taking the worship of the disciples on behalf of Krishna and then offering it to Krishna, so that that paramparic line of the worship which is been offered to the spiritual master goes to the Supreme Lord. As Prabhupada said, I receive worship, I give it to my Guru Maharaj, and he gives it to his Guru Maharaj, and his Guru Maharaj ultimately goes to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. But worship is one aspect and honor is another. So one should not get confused between the respect given to the demigods and worship given to demigods. So we should be very, very mindful that we don't be offensive to demigods, because they are also pure devotees of Krishna, and showing disrespect to them is showing disrespect to the Supreme Lord. So we have to be very mindful. So I say that we should be very careful. And of course, your point about Arjuna's Rath, where he had Hanuman's flag. Hanuman is a pure devotee of the Lord Rama, and he is endowed with Shakti, power. That's why it's called Bajrang Bali, that he is the most powerful person. And therefore, by having Hanuman with you, you have the power of the Supreme Lord with you. So Krishna is again here saying that these are the proper etiquettes of showing respect and honor to the Supreme Lord and his devotees. And we take shelter of his devotees. Therefore, every time Prabhupada is mentioning that always be in association of devotees and take shelter of devotees. Why? Because they are more closer and connected to Krishna, and therefore you will also be connected with Krishna in good association. So these are all different aspects you have to understand properly. Honor and worship is two different things.
Thank you, Maharaj. Worshipping and honoring, I understood, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. The next question Apurva wants to ask. Apurva. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances,
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj.
Obeisances.
Hare Krishna. So Maharaj, today I have a question from Rupa Mataji, who is listening in from Bangalore. So she attends your classes whenever you have them in weekly on YouTube. So her question is that is the faith that one has, is it an accumulation of one's past experiences? That means by our past births, is it influenced by that, the faith that we have now?
To some extent, yes, because in Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami says in the 2nd chapter that when we come to Krishna consciousness, that is because in the past lives we have done certain credits which merits us to take shelter of the Supreme Lord or to get to know him. And therefore, in this life, our faith is directed towards the Supreme Lord and his devotee. And of course, his scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and so forth. Otherwise, the faith is part and parcel of a living entity as far as human beings are concerned. That, as Krishna explains in the 17th chapter, this faith is manifested in different ways according to the modes of material nature impacting upon you. So if you are impacted by mode of ignorance or mode of passion or mode of goodness, then your faith will be directed accordingly. And as I said, that if you come to Krishna consciousness, then there's two things. One is, of course, due to your own past good deeds you have performed, that it merits you to come to Krishna consciousness. Second is that just by causeless mercy of a devotee, he or she brings you in contact with Krishna consciousness, and therefore allowing you to transcend the effects of the three modes or faith built by three modes to come to pure faith of understanding Krishna, and then you connect to Krishna and then you take his shelter. So sometimes you see example is given that you may not be a perfect person, but because of good association, you become perfect. What comes to my mind right now is one example is the dog which was accompanying Sivananda Sen, who was taking the pilgrimage party from Bengal to Puri to meet Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when the dog was accompanying them, the other pilgrims saying, this is a very dirty animal and sinful and eats meat and unclean. We should get rid of from our entourage. But Sivananda Sen, compassion in his heart, is saying, let the dog come. He's coming where? He's coming to Puri. He's coming to the Lord. So who are we to stop him? Lord in his heart is directing him. So Sivananda said, don't worry, we'll take care of the dog and give him food and everything, but he will not sleep with us. He will sleep in his own little distant under a tree somewhere. So he was going every day. And finally, when they reached nearer to Puri, the dog in his heart was so much purified by the good association, because every day, wherever they were going on the pilgrimage, they were chanting kirtan. At night, they would have a Krishna Katha. So the dog would patiently sit there and hear these things. And then morsel of food which was given to the dog was all prasadam. So the dog's heart was becoming purified. And then when they reached nearer to Puri, the dog said, hey, you can stay here tonight. I'm going all the way to see the Lord. Because his heart is so purified, his attraction towards Jagannath Puri was strong. He went there, and in the morning when Mahaprabhu was sitting there discussing philosophy with his entourage, he saw the dog and he immediately understood the dog's heart. He picked up a morsel of Mahaprasad and gave it to the dog as mercy. Dog partook that prasadam and immediately gave up his body and went to the spiritual world. Now this is in a dog's body, what to speak of a human body. So when we have a good association, then that is that's called kripa, or just causeless mercy upon us. So no doubt, one is of course our previous deeds merits us to come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Other is by the mercy of devotees who are compassionate. As I said, that compassion is already there in the heart. How you show your compassion could be in mode of ignorance, passion, or goodness. But when you are rightly situated and guided by the scriptural injunctions and under this direction of the bona fide spiritual master, then your compassion will be directed in a pure way to uplift the fallen conditioned souls from their darkness to light. In other words, give them knowledge of Krishna, and therefore they will be also recipient of the mercy of Krishna through the benefits of associating with devotees.
And also, Maharaj, in connection with the faith that others have towards demigods, that is also carried over from the past, isn't it, Maharaj?
Yeah, I mean, whatever we have, see, whatever good or bad we bring with this life with us is carried on from our last life. Only thing is that nothing of material nature, we can bring it back to this life with us. Because the mind is accompaniment of the soul, and whatever is already in the mind in terms of consciousness, that carries with you in your next life. The only thing Krishna puts a mute button in your mind is that you cannot remember your past life. But the result of past life is carried forward. So unfortunately, he is controlling the master mute. So we cannot unmute it, that we can know what is our past.
That's a good one.
That's good. So it's by our, to some extent, what association we choose in this life, and also the causeless mercy of the devotee that can help to divert our faith towards the Supreme Lord, if we have some, or even if we have none.
Yeah, I mean, you see, as a devotee, as practicing devotee of Krishna, we accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we surrender to Him and worship Him according to the scriptural injunctions, even though we may not be perfect. But you show someone else the direction, as much as you know, then they are directed in the right direction. And once they come to the right direction, then of course Krishna says, when you come to me, I will take over. Krishna says, Desam satatam yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam. Then I give you intelligence by which you can know me and come to me. So when even with little faith you appreciate Krishna, you bow down to him. Man mana bhava mad bhakta. Krishna says, you bow down to me, offer your prayers to me. Then I take care of you from that point onwards, because you are showing indication that willingly you want to come to me, but you don't know how to come to me. So I will show you how to come to me. I will guide you, and then Krishna takes over from there. And then after that point is Krishna Kripa, that grace of Lord is upon us. So we have to just do our duty, as Krishna says himself. As well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, "Yare dekho tare kaho Krishna Upades." Wherever we go, whoever we meet, just speak about them Krishna. And because Krishna is so beautiful or attractive, they will get some attraction towards him. And Krishna is just looking for that little indication from an individual living entity that he wants to look towards Krishna. Says, hey, Krishna, I want to know you. Says, okay, that's enough. Now that you have approached me, I'm going to take over from here. And then it's up to Krishna how fast he purifies that individual entity to come to the highest professional stage. But nonetheless, you're on your journey. And once you're on that journey of perfection, it will become perfect. Whether one day, 1 year, one lifetime, that is up to Krishna. But he takes care of it from that point onwards. And as soon as we are sincere to Krishna, and Krishna says, I will take care of you, don't worry. Have faith in me. And don't divert your faith here, there, and everywhere. Once you come to me, then just be focused on to me. And this is why Prabhupada says, to remain focused in Krishna and not become deviant from, deviate our attention in other things, is that we stay in a close proximity of devotee association. When we are in association of devotees, then automatically we'll be focused, because the collective body of devotees are focused only in one thing, Krishna, nothing else. So if you associate with non-devotees, then obviously they are thinking about a lot of other things than Krishna. Then you will be focused, your attention will be dragged along. And then just like the waves of the ocean, you stand there and it just comes in and out, and you can be swept away by those waves of Maya, because that's what you are associating with. But unless you are firmly deep-rooted in Krishna, then even the most heaviest tsunami wave comes, you won't be moved. You'll be focused, because you are completely deep-rooted in Krishna. But in the beginning stage, we are not so deep-rooted. So the plant, as the example I can give you is, you make a small plant, you put it in the ground from the flowering pot. What happens? The roots are still very fragile. You can pluck it out with 2 fingers. But if that tree becomes more mature and very strong, the roots are so deep that you cannot pluck it out anymore. So as our devotion becomes deep-rooted, then nothing can pluck us out. But if it's still fresh and young, then slightest wind of Maya comes and we can be swept away. That's why we have to be very conscious and aware of choosing our association properly.
Yes, indeed, Maharaj.
So thank you very much, Maharaj. We are at 15 past 9.
19 past 5.
So yeah, that's time at your end.
Very precise, you see, look.
I know.
You see my
You're fortunate. You're still in the evening.
outside is pitch black dark.
For sure. Yeah. And it's pretty pitch black dark here too.
Yeah, but you know, your time is different. Yours is probably 9:30.
We have a 9:15.
Yes, and here it is 5 o'clock, and outside
Pitch
it's like
dark.
10 o'clock at night, pitch black.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, this is England.
Maharaj, thank you very much. One of the points you said that deep rooted, and I think the example that you gave, was very apt. And I think that's a takeaway, that we have to make our Krishna consciousness deep rooted. We need to deep dive into the books. Ministry of Education of ISKCON now is really doing a lot of outreach and communicating with the ISKCON devotees at large, that books are the basis, that Prabhupada said, and that we have to dive deeper and deeper into Prabhupada's books and his teachings. And we see that in you as an example, Maharaj, honestly, setting a good example of how everything is there in Prabhupada's books. And when you present, you're setting a very good example in that respect. So thank you very much.
One thing. I'll tell you one thing. One time Prabhupada was sitting in his room and he asked one of his servants, read Srimad Bhagavatam. So he picked up a book and he started reading, and Prabhupada was hearing, and Prabhupada was taking so much interest in reading of the Bhagavatam. So then this devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you're taking so much pleasure in hearing your own words. And Prabhupada said, no, I am not hearing my words. When I'm sitting down and translating these books, Krishna is sitting right next to me. He's dictating every word. So these are words of Krishna. These are not my words. And then the second thing Prabhupada said, every time I read this same purport, same book, I get ever fresh new realizations. So this is a pure devotee Prabhupada speaking, what to speak of you and I. So if we take in the same mood and read Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada, although we credit that this is Prabhupada's purpose, but Prabhupada himself says these are words dictated by Krishna himself. So, Prabhupada is an instrument to these words, which is elaborating the scriptures, which we can understand in our common language. At the same time, Prabhupada says that you read more and more, you'll get ever fresh, new, deeper realization and understanding, because these books are not ordinary. These are the words of Krishna. They are non-different from Krishna. As we discussed a few lectures before, person Bhagavad and book Bhagavad. You cannot differentiate the two. So we may not always be in association of person Bhagavad, because it's difficult to find person Bhagavats. But book Bhagavad is very easily available to us. Nowadays, in the social media, you can have it downloaded on your smartphone, and you can carry the all Prabhupada's books on your smartphone. And at the press of a button, you just get access to any book you want and read anywhere, any place. So my take on this is that Prabhupada has made it so easy for us to become Krishna conscious, even though we are living in sometimes very difficult conditions in different countries where atmosphere is not perfect, but perfection can be brought by Prabhupada's books. And these books are accessible to all of us. If you just consciously make effort to read this regularly, you will never be deprived of Krishna and his devotee.
Indeed, Maharaj, very well said. So on that very positive and transcendental mode, we will end our session here. So if any of the devotees want to switch on their cameras and want to say something to Maharaj, most welcome to do so. And especially Maharaj's disciples. But I always say Maharaj is Diksha and Siksha Guru to all of us. So anything from anyone?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, please accept our humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, you just said there is a pitch dark outside in UK, and for us it is pitch dark outside also and inside also. And we are really blessed to have you to give some light to get this darkness get fade away with your blessings and your teachings from Maharaj. Thank you very much. Really blessed to have you.
By having darkness everywhere, we still have access to electricity and we can switch on a light anytime we want. You will be free from darkness. And when the night comes, you read the book and you'll get even more light.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anybody else? Okay. So Maharaj, let's pay our obeisances to Maharaj. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha Shava sindhu
Vaishnavyo namo
Pavane His Holiness Atmanivedana Swami Maharaj
Ki
ki
jai.
His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki
Ki
jai.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, and thank you all for your enthusiastic participation. We'll meet again, Maharaj,
Saturday.
on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Dandavad pranam, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Dandavad pranam, Maharaj.